All right, D. Well, before we wrap up the bank recruiting updates, we have our guest backstage with us here. So I'm going to bring him in right now. Wyatt Wheeler joining the show right now, and he's I don't know if this is self-proclaimed. I'm saying it's self-proclaimed, but on his Twitter bio it says the best-looking sports reporter at the Springfield News Leader. So again, it's in his bio. Didn't have quotation marks around it. So
yeah, when you're the only one, you can start calling yourself those things. I think a lot of people would say the worst looking one, and has for me as well. So yeah, that's what we go with.
Well, Wyatt, man, thank you for joining us, man. I've been excited to have you on. Kind of watching your coverage of Jackson Cantwell, which was by far the best coverage of anybody, including recruiting writers. You were the one that I watched the closest, watched that long interview you did with him on that football field, right? That's when I saw that one, when I kind of like, all right, now I see why the coaches are confident they got a chance here, because he definitely sounded all Miami in that interview. Even as other sites were reporting different things, you kind of had the real deal there. So before we get into Jackson Cantwell and your relationship with him, tell us a little bit about yourself and the place you're from.
Yeah, I've been down here in Springfield, Missouri, which is the bigger city that Nix is right next to, for about 10 years now. Covering a bunch of high school kids, covering Missouri State University, which is moving to Conference USA this year, and just a ton to do right now. But yeah, they're just, when you find a kid like Jackson Cantwell come along, that's somebody you cover extensively. The area had Dorial Green Beckham back in 2012, and #1 recruit and everything, and it was just kind of a frenzy when he was here. So we had a similar thing with Jackson down here, and you add all the track stuff in there as well, and he's as big as it gets in the area. So that was it's been a ton of fun to cover.
Wyatt, just so like people understand, so by the way, Missouri State, I feel like I know more about Missouri State than most, because one of our buddies, a writer for our website, Lance Roffers, who I know you're in contact with, he's a big Missouri State guy. So I always hear about that lefty outfield. It looks like he's going to be a first-round pick out of there. So shout out to Lance. But for those because look, a lot of Florida people on this show, a lot of people who maybe have never been to Missouri. I had never been to Missouri. That's on my list. But like, people might think it's like haystacks and stuff. It's an urban environment. Like what tell us about Southwest Missouri, particularly Springfield, Nixa, for those who are not familiar with the area.
Yeah, I've listened to a few of your podcasts before, just listening to how you guys talk about Jackson and some of the hype around there. So I have heard you guys talk about how this is just the sticks and everything.
I didn't say that. I said it's very different than Miami.
That was definitely him, because I don't make those generalizations.
An unusual place for us to get players.
Oh yeah, no. It's I've laughed a little bit but this is kind of an urban area. Nix is up and coming, just kind of it's going to overtake everything down here eventually, just because of the money that's going in there and a lot of people moving out there. But we do have Branson down the street, which is where you can generalize a lot of those things, when that's just kind of a hillbilly tourist destination where you get all the country shows. But with Springfield, Nixa, just their surrounding cities are a little more urban than you'd think. Good small town, good people, and it's been improving in football over the last several years, and but nothing remotely close to what Jackson's been. So it's a good urban area.
Wyatt, when was the first time you heard of Jackson? And we've talked about how you've been covering him for a while now, and he's still as young as he is. He's still 16, right? So obviously you've been covering him for a while. He's 16. You must have heard about him when he was pretty young. So talk to us about that, and just kind of like how you've seen him grow and mature into becoming the number one recruit in the country?
Yeah. So before his freshman year, I started hearing about him. When you hear about a 6'8" incoming freshman with the size and athleticism and the genetics he has because of his parents, that's when you send the football coach a text saying, I need to I need to talk to this kid. And a lot of coaches will be hesitant to give you a freshman sometimes before they play a game. And this coach is as good as anybody in the area. And he's just like, get down here. You got to meet this kid. So it was about 3 years ago, before his freshman year, where we're sitting down on a bench at Nick's high school. And we just talked for 20 minutes about, and it's hard to keep a conversation with some kids for that long when they haven't done too much interview stuff. And always just an extremely bright kid, just humble, just going through every little aspect of just extremely detailed. You guys have heard in his interviews, just if you ask him one thing, he'll expand on it and just kind of find all the intricacies and small little details, and just trying to how he can be better in some of those things. Before his freshman year, got to know him. He had a 33 in his ACT because he got bored one day during the summer, decided to teach himself some things, and I went and got a 33 on his ACT, and it's just like, this kid's just nuts. So was able to write that story, just introduce him to the area in a way, because you figure this kid's going to be 4-star, 5-star with those measurables someday, to where we're going to be talking about him a lot. Had a feeling that something like this could happen. So just watching him, he starts the third game of his freshman season because the offensive lineman got hurt. You can't take him out once he's in there. And he's always been, I remember before his freshman year, his football coach took him to a camp over at Oklahoma State just to try to get his feet wet, get him used to it. And he was horrible that first day, is what they said. And then he goes back to the dorm room, a hotel room, wherever they were staying, and he just kind of breaks down everything, trying to just figure out what he can improve on and all that. And then the next day he comes out and dominates everybody. And that's kind of how he was that first game the first game of his freshman season. Struggled a little bit against the state contending team. Rest of the year, he's dominant. Sophomore year, doesn't allow a sack. Junior year, doesn't allow a sack. And then he just blows up into this recruit that we figured he could be. And really, he hasn't changed since. Those conversations I've had since that freshman year, still the same kid and everything. He's just the same humble kid that has had more attention than any high school kid we've ever had down here. And he'll make some jokes on Twitter, which has been fun to watch when people give him a hard time, but just the same kid. And I've enjoyed getting to know him and his parents tremendously.
Yeah, I talked to a buddy of mine who's actually from Missouri, and he was telling me that Southwest Missouri is actually known for throwers. For whatever reason, it's like there's like a lot of people. It's like, I don't know, there's a community down there, or it's just strong kids that's a throwing area. At least when he would go to track meets from a different, he was from the St. Louis area. So, what is that true? And just like the throwing aspect of what Cantwell brings to the table, you having seen not just his football career, but his throwing career, put that in context for Miami fans, just how special he is in that sport.
Yeah, just 3 of the top 4 state finishers in our largest class were from the area. His best friend has been finishing second behind him every single year. So when Jackson early enrolls next year, it'll be nice for that kid to get the first place finish that he had. All these kids had to accept pretty early on. We're playing for second, and I went to that state track meet just to watch the spectacle of, I knew Jackson was going to impress, but I wanted to hear how everybody else treated him. And it was like a rock star, man. It just like, hearing a kid like gasp when he walks by and be like, "Oh my God, there he is." And he's like, "I'm starstruck." And I look at it and I was like, he's just this goofy kid, man. You don't have to be that starstruck over him, but he just has that way, that pull within him that a lot of people just are in awe when he walks by, and then he almost throws the shot put out of the little shot put venue that they have. So it's funny. One girl brushed his arm and said, "Oh my God, I touched him." And it's just like that. That's just kind of the way that it's just kind of the legend that he's been able to grow around here. And he's just dominant. I mean, he's standing there warming up, and his warm up throws when he's not even spinning are going further than the second place finisher. And people are taking their phones out to watch him stretch before, and it's kind of weird just getting to know him, that he's a 16-year-old kid, extremely young for his class, which I'm sure you guys have covered a little bit. Just how much attention he really could be he could be a sophomore if his parents decided to have him in that class. But he's going to be extremely young when he gets into college. 17-year-old kid whose birthday lands in the second semester, so that just makes him that more attractive, and just shows that ceiling's even as high as it is. But the track stuff has been fun to watch, getting to know his Olympian parents, as good people as you could be around. And when you get your first eyes on Christian walking around and seeing how big he is, and you'll understand what you'll see somebody a little bit bigger than Jackson a little bit, to where you'll understand where he comes from and why he's been able to turn into what he is.
You mentioned his parents, so I wanted to ask about them, because just kind of watching this process from afar, I was, as a Miami fan, like, are they going to be with him going to a place like Miami, was so far away, that is not as established as Georgia right now in terms of where they're currently have been as a program, but at the same time they've been around the world, right, given their background. So can you talk about just his parents, your dealings with them, and kind of their impact on this whole process?
Yeah, Christian and Terry are great. From everything I heard, they let him make his choice. I don't know. I don't know if Miami would have been their first choice, and I don't say that to say it wasn't. I don't know what theirs was. They were really hands off and letting him make his decision, and they know he's going to break down everything and make the most informed decision possible. As we saw when he decided to delay his commitment by a few weeks. I'm sure it had everybody's head spinning on where that was, or what that could have meant. But it was really just because he wanted to gather more information, and he still lands on Miami. So it's those two are as good as it gets. I think it sounds like that they're looking for somewhere to live, just kind of away from Springfield area, still in Missouri, whether that's getting back up to Columbia, where Mizzou's located, getting on Lake of the Ozarks. But they didn't. I think everybody in the state just assumed Mizzou, just because that's where the dad went, and they've had some NIL advantages with some state laws and everything. I thought that was probably the favorite for a lot of it until probably throughout his junior year, when he started to like Miami a little more. I listened to Mike Ryan on the Levitard show, so I know how good the Mirrorball Cristobal combination is. So that always made sense to me. And a lot of people would DM me like, "Why are you thinking Miami has a shot at this?" It's just like, they're building, they're coming up, and it's the combination of those two is going to have them in this until the very end. But no, they'll be at games. They'll make sure they fly out to everything. They're well off to be able to get there, but I think they'll be a little hands off, and we'll go support him wherever he is.
So, one thing with Jackson that it catches my attention from just you going through is, freshman year, kind of having bad outings at a camp or a game or whatever, and then coming back and just completely dominating. I know Under Armour was my first exposure to him, and it didn't really play to his strengths because they weren't run blocking, letting him just like demolish people like we know he could do. He had a pass block. He was going against like guys that, are the best anywhere in the country. So just kind of the pass blocking development, right? How much did his team pass block, and you seeing his trajectory and kind of the ups and downs, maybe the more that others have seen, including the bounce backs, right? How do you see his pass blocking developing at the next level?
Yeah, they haven't had to do too much of that, and of course the competition here is way lower than what he's seeing at the Under Armour. I mean, they were a run first, they're a run first team. The offensive line they have down here, even if he wasn't on it, it would be one of the best. It would be the best one in the area. It's just a bigger offensive line than you're used to seeing. You throw him in there, and it's run behind him the whole game, and they're running for. They end up in the highest class state championship where they finish as runner-up. They go up against some Division I recruits, so he's seeing more better guys throughout the year. So that'll be a process. I think just because they are run blocking so much, he is putting people in the turf all the time. They have a good quarterback that I hope that they let him pass block a lot more this year, just because they have some questions at running back, and their quarterback just got his first FBS offer. So they do have some things to where that might be more practice this year, but he's still not going against those top level guys. So, he's dominating the kids in the area, but he's going to see some different athletes once he gets up there. So that will be something to watch. But there's the way he adapts, the way he breaks down everything. If you ask him out again after the game how he thinks he did, he'll start critiquing his hand placement. Just saying that he should have been a little lower, should have been under the pads, should have been this or that. So he's thinking about it the whole game, and he's one of those guys where you can just point back to one play and he'll tell you what he did wrong or how he could have done a little better. So I don't have any doubts that once he gets up to that next level where he's around this best combination of offensive line coaches in the country, that he'll be able to quickly adjust. And, he might have some struggles early on, but he'll turn in. But I always tell people he's going to turn into that first gold medalist throwing first overall draft pick that cures cancer, just because he's that type of genius, that type of athlete. So he'll be an adjustment period, but I don't doubt he'll get better and start excelling at that pretty quickly.
Wyatt, I'm curious, from what off-field interests, it doesn't seem like a guy who really is into the TikTok and the social media. Like he does it, but it seems like it's more because it's almost like business. You see him with the First Form nutrition deal and stuff like that he posts it, but it doesn't seem like he's your normal 16-year-old kid, right? Even a lot of these top recruits, right? They have a lot of other interests. I'm curious, from what you know about him, is it all ball, all weight room with him?
You got to throw weight room in there. That's for sure. That's I mean, you showed the benching videos here earlier. Before his sophomore year, I went out and watched him work out just because that was becoming a viral online thing where people wanted to watch that. But I always ask him just when are you allowed to be a kid? Are you having fun with this? What are you going to do now that this recruitment's over? He's just like, I'm going to get in the weight room and I'm going to practice and I'm going to hopefully make some visits to Miami. And he's a focused kid. He's focused on being as good as he can be. He wants to be able to outbench his dad someday, which probably I don't think it's going to happen. I think the arms are too long, and Christian's chest is a little too big for that, to where Doesn't really have that, but and he might do it just because he's that motivated. But he's in the weight room a ton. He's just got his license recently, so he's able to make that drive to whatever weight room he wants to be at. He's excited to get in. It's like, what are you going to do this summer? He's like, I'm going to practice with my high school team. And it's just like, I hope you're able to breathe a little bit, because
so he's not playing video. It doesn't sound like he's streaming himself playing video games.
Not streaming himself, but I wonder with some of the things Rosenhaus has been able to land him, if they'll be able to turn some things into more money opportunities for NIL and everything. But he's all over the place trying to. He's enjoying that NIL space. He's enjoying his relationships with some high level representation, but he's being a kid a little bit now. But hopefully, I want to see him enjoy it, because I know how stressful this recruitment process was. I know how everything was a weight off his shoulder, and you could probably find him at the local Waffle House or something during his off time. And yeah, he's a funny kid. So I always hope that he's enjoying things.
And then this is pancakes for sure. Go ahead, Pete.
This is my last question for you, Wyatt, and it kind of goes to the back of what you were just saying. How stressful the process was. It seemed like at the end there, he was definitely irked at the narrative coming out of he's only going to Miami because of the money, because of the NIL package, right? And you said you had listened as we said 2 weeks before the whole thing that, look, it's going to start to come out that Miami is a favorite in this thing, but it's because of NIL. So like this was something that was kind of building, it felt like, and you being kind of behind the scenes there and seeing how it played out, like that statement he made at the presser after the announcement. I mean, just talk a little bit about that and how he kind of probably felt like it wasn't fair that sort of narrative was out there.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. I know the family was annoyed by that. The reports weren't true. Just considering some of the, just the dollar amount and how high it was. Maybe it gets there by later in his career, but it's hard to believe that somebody would throw that much money at a true freshman coming in. So it annoyed them. That's just you guys covered it. That's a tactic that they use to try to scare them into things. And like I said, a lot of people were in disbelief that Miami could be that favorite for a number one recruit when everybody just assumes it's going to be Georgia, the Alabamas, and just some of those that have been well established over this last decade plus, to where Miami's this up and coming, just kind of resurging back into the national picture right now. Still needs to get in the college football playoff and everything. But if you recognize, just having a number one overall pick in the NFL draft, you recognize just the type of recruiting they're getting and how close they are to challenging in the ACC. You understand why Miami was an attractive option, but Georgia was still able to lean into why Miami's only being able to do this because of the money, because it's just kind of how the reporting's gone on around Miami. And I hate NIL reporting because I find it all so inaccurate sometimes. And, Jackson was impacted by that, to where false stuff was online about him and just kind of painting him as this kid that's going somewhere just for money. So he's smart enough to be able to put in a shot there when just be kind of going at on threes Pete Nakos a little bit, just being able to call him out by name and saying what he did. So the family didn't want that to get as big as it did, and that's just kind of how the recruiting reporting goes. And when he was about to pick, before he decided to delay, I thought it was Miami all the way. I think we all kind of took a step back once he delayed, did another trip to Georgia, thinking that Georgia was maybe starting to be the pick, while also feeling like Miami was still right there and it could happen. But I think that report really bugged the family a bit, to where Miami was the choice. He knows how when you talk to him, when you see that video that I did with him, just kind of breaking down every little thing, it always came down to those relationships. It came down to the high level coaching he could get, and he saw that was better at Miami. And I never questioned that at all for those decisions. Assuming, Georgia's not short on money. Oregon's not short on money. Ohio State's not short on money, to where if they wanted to match or try to get him up to where Miami was offering, I don't think that would have been a problem. But they just felt him slipping, and they put that out there to where they could hurt his reputation a little bit. But he's been fine throughout it. I know he deleted Twitter for a little bit just because of some of the backlash he's gotten from a lot of that, but it's all good. He's going to Miami. He's proud of that. Threw the U up after he won the shot put, came a centimeter short of breaking the national record. But he's great. He's in a pretty good place after that. Happy to have all this off his shoulders.
And while you said something, I don't want to misquote you, so I'm going to ask it again to make sure that I'm getting you right, because it's something I've said and people thought I was just kind of being a homer about it, which is that my sense when all that came out about the NIL was that people inside of Georgia, because they, like you said, maybe felt the relationship slipping away a little bit as far as, him really believing what Mirabal and Cristobal were telling him about his future there, that they would leak that out about the NIL, because that would create a narrative that if Cantwell chose Miami because he thinks Miami has the best chance to develop him as an offensive lineman, my editorializing mean that Georgia didn't really have a very good offensive line this year. Miami had a much better one. That if he chose the football decision for his own development to go to Miami, everybody else would think it's all NIL, and that would dissuade him from picking Miami because of the narrative. Am I characterizing that accurately? I don't want to misquote you or what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't have that word for word from what the family believes. But when Jackson goes up there and says pushing a narrative that Pete Nakos had, I mean, it sounds like he's talking about just the NIL and everything that came out, because that's the report he made, and he knew how that was going to be characterized. Whether it was on the Georgia side, and they love Dan Lanning, and they had that last trip to Oregon right before, but they had good relationships everywhere. And from talking to him afterward, from talking to his dad and parents a few weeks after that went on, after the decision was made, they still talk highly of everybody that they had. Those coaches are still going to try to have those relationships, because we live in this transfer portal world to where they want to be able to have that just in case Jackson does decide to go into portal or change his mind. So, I mean, it's not like everybody's backing off and saying, oh, our relationships are bad. They want to keep those relationships. Georgia, I know, was in town. They actually had breakfast with Jackson at a Waffle House days before the commitment. So, I mean, that's maybe they felt that they put in those last second pushes, whether it was getting him on campus one last time, having him delay his commitment, whether it was flying down days later to have breakfast with him. But it just seems like when that came out, when it did, and just kind of hearing Jackson's words when he's calling out a reporter, that's where it just all makes sense and lines up with everything, to be like, somebody put that out there just to mess with his reputation a little bit, maybe mess with his head and make a different commitment. But when that kid makes a decision based off of where he feels like he developed best, this, and that, that's what he's going to do, because he's a smart kid. That's just what he's going to decide. He's not going to let anybody bully him out of it. So, Miami it was, and I think it was a great decision. You'll see a first-round pick out of there off that offensive line this upcoming NFL draft, and I'll be the biggest fan of Jackson Cantwell in Miami until he's the next first-round draft pick. So just really hoping that happens.
I got one more question, and you've been very generous with your time, but we got the best looking reporter at the Springfield News Leader. We can't waste our opportunity here. So the last question I have is just his track career, right? So he has an opportunity to come back in high school and break the national record, most likely. But of course, that would conflict with spring practice. My understanding is he's probably going to come to Miami early. That's what he's been saying. Is that still the case? And if he does decide to, okay, I'm not going to finish my track career in high school, I'm going to Miami, do you see his track career ending? Do you see him maybe revisiting it down the road after he's a little more comfortable? Like, where do you see his track career going from here?
He's said different things at different points. I think he was really excited after he had that throw at the state championships here recently, to where he came up a centimeter short of one of the records. That wasn't the main record that Michael Carter set, but it was a centimeter short of one of the national records in high school competition. But I think he was really excited when he's like, maybe I'll rethink early enrolling. But I think he knows. I think he wants to play as quickly as he can in that semester of practice and getting in there. And I think his excitement just to get down to Miami is going to trump everything, to where he's going to get down there and get into practice and everything. And then, once he gets to Miami, I think that he's kind of he said different things. He said he's been allowed to. He said he doesn't know if he's going to where I could see him skipping and just trying to be as good of a football player, because he understands that's what he's being paid to do. Is what he keeps saying, kind of on that front. So it's kind of up in the air. I remember during the Olympics this past summer where everybody was texting me just wondering, is Jackson going to throw in 4 years? Jackson going to throw in 4 years, to the point where I texted him. And he's just replies, he's like, I'll probably throw at the qualifying stuff in 4 years. But if I'm throwing in the Olympics, something went wrong with my NFL career. So I said my NFL, my football career. So he's focused on football. He knows where his future is. And that's his love right now at track. He said after that track meet that track kind of fell a little out of love with track because of all the attention he was getting on football. Everything was so football for his recruitment, to where track has kind of taken that backstage. And he's found some love in that again. He'll have the nationals coming up here in Oregon here in the next few weeks. Forget when those dates were, but he'll be able to go out there and do it again, and maybe get closer to that record. But when I asked pretty early on, when he announced his Final Four, the day he cut out Mizzou, when I asked his dad, do you think he's going to approach Michael Carter's record? His dad said no, because he's going to early enroll. So it was pretty hard right there, to where I don't think he's going to. I think he'll just be in Miami next come the spring, to where he's trying to get a quick start, trying to start as a freshman.
All right, Wyatt. Well, we'll drop your Twitter link in the description of this show, so that people can shoot you a follow. I'm guessing we'll have some coverage throughout his season as well. So let the people know where to what to expect.
Yeah, I have some ideas that I want to do. When you have this type of kid, I've loved my relationship with him. He's just an awesome kid, awesome family, to where I'll be the biggest fan of him for his entire career. So I'm very excited for him. So I'll be covering him. Twitter, Wyatt Wheeler _NL, news-leader.com is where I write all my stuff. So have some ideas of some different fun stories I want to do with him. And I'm sure he's sick of me by now, but we've had a lot of fun, and just really looking forward to watching this senior year, and hopefully bringing the U back to where to where he's competing for national championships and being a high NFL draft pick. So one of my favorite kids, and I'm very excited to see where he ends up.
I have one suggestion or something I want to see. I want to see you try to keep up with him eating the same meals that he's eating in a day. I want to see what his nutritional regimen looks like, man. I'm sure he's eating a lot of calories, man.
I did that with the first story I wrote on him. I asked about I asked about his food, and he said he'll come home and his parents will have steaks ready to go. He'll get in the car. He'll get in the car and he'll go with his dad to just after a practice, after a workout, and his dad will just stop by and order a large pizza for him to eat. So I mean, that nutrition is crazy, and I might need to update it and just see what they have him on, but. I asked him, so what do they want your body to look like? What do they want your size to be at when you get down there? And he's like, I'm pretty much there right now, 6'8", 320. And it's just like, you're a freak. And it's just, so he'll keep that up. He's an animal. So I want to ask about that again.
I think Miami coaches will defer to the Olympian parents whose roof he's living under right now. So I don't think that they're going to need to adjust anything much before he gets to campus, man. But no, Wyatt, it was awesome talking to you. Great getting the insight on Jackson Cantwell from you. Again, as Danny said here, you've been covering this better than anyone, and excited to see your coverage throughout the rest of the season. And we'll hopefully have you on back again, maybe midway through his senior year here.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. You guys do a great job. You guys have been good to Jackson. So excited that he's headed down there, and excited to follow your guys' work when he's there, and hopefully a long career after he's at Miami.
And we know now, Springfield, not the sticks. It's an urban environment, folks. So appreciate you, Wyatt. We'll publicize we'll push all your stuff, man. We can't wait to read it, and we'll make sure everybody else down here gets to see it.
No, you guys are great. Thanks so much.
All right, Wyatt, have a good one. Awesome stuff there from Wyatt Wheeler, and just getting a look behind the curtain, so to speak, of the recruitment and of the player. Yeah, man. Listen, got not only some talented football players out there in Springfield, but obviously a very talented journalist there as well. So appreciate Wyatt for joining the show.